All right, so what can Web 2.0 do for us here? What it can start to do is give companies more of the tools, more of the knowledge to solve some of the very, very tricky problems that really they're not going to be able to solve by themselves. What we're starting to see is the creation of what the Atlantic Monthly called the creation of public goods markets. Right? And you can see these, particularly the Gates Foundation is doing some fascinating work in this area around health. Right? They're actually starting to use the market to use a variety of capital, foundation monies, public money, and some corporate money to create markets where none existed before, so that you can actually support the creation of new vaccine development where pharmaceutical wouldn't do it before. Now, what people are starting to think about doing is starting to use the wisdom of the crowd to begin to gauge in this process, not only about innovating new drugs, but thinking about creative ways to distribute those drugs, and thinking about creative ways to create workforces around that, and to think about creative ways to connect microfinancing and microenterprise loans to this. And the power of the technology allows that to happen, again, much faster than it otherwise would, and in fact gives tremendous ideas. Now, if we're going to do this, and if we're going to open up companies more to this type of dialogue, there's something that companies tell me that they want. They want two things. And one thing I'm not going to help them with, and the other thing that I am. And I'll end on these 2 points. The thing I'm not going to help them with is when they ask me, and in this process they've been asking me this question a lot, how can my company use Web 2.0 to better get my message across? Right? And there's lots of ways I could be very honest and I could be very judicious in how I interpret this. I don't feel like being very judicious in how I interpret this because really what they're talking about is very, very traditional marketing and public relations strategies. And I have a friend who also go nameless, who has this wonderful company. One of the things they do is that there's a movie coming out, like I saw a sign for it, Beverly Hills Chihuahua. And what his team will do for whatever production company is putting out is they will pretend to be 11 and 12-year-old girls and boys on chat rooms saying, wow, this movie is so cool, okay? You know, sort of a traditional strategy applied to the new technology. And I am somewhat cynical about this, and I don't, you can tell, and I'm not really interested in companies engaging, certainly my advice, in terms of how to enhance this. What I'm much more interested in is how companies can find a way to engage in some of the dangerous dialogue that sparks tremendous innovation, sparks honest and candid conversation. But to do that, the second thing that they're asking for is we have to find a way to make this safe. And right now, Web 2.0 is a space for us to do this is not safe enough for us because what we say goes out there and we're too vulnerable. Now, the Web 2.0 partisans and activists and the brilliant minds who have sort of driven the development of this say, tough, all right? It's a naked world that we're entering in. You've got to be naked, and it's up to you to make sure that you look really buff when you're naked. And that's, you know, the powerful metaphor that they use. I'm not convinced. I think that in every single forum, this is a revolutionary tool. What we have now is a revolutionary communications tool that revolutionizes the way that we deal with defining and then governing terms of accountability. If we're going to do that, then we have to create some kind of rules. And Andrew mentioned eBay is a classic example of sort of a self-generated, self-regulating system. I'm not talking about creating legal and bureaucratic compliance for this, but I think that what we need to do is we need to start creating at least some rules of etiquette that begin to expand into some deeper types of component so that if you're going to have an honest dialogue where I do open the kimono or take off my clothes or any of these things that you don't want to imagine right now, if I'm going to do that, I need to know that what I'm communicating is going to be treated with certain sensitivity. Otherwise, the real power of this tool for accountability, for driving corporate responsibility, won't be delivered.